Day. Ooh, right. Let's just move that over here. Still trying to figure out this whole light business. Sorry about that. Welcome. Time for my devotional again. I've been away. I've been out of town the last 2 days, and so I haven't been able to do the devotional as I normally do on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week. So, Tuesday of this week. It is Wednesday. Wow, there's my week for you. Uh, so anyway, I missed yesterday. I'm going to be out of town again tomorrow, so I won't be able to do one tomorrow, but then I'll be back on Friday, so we'll be able to have something there. Anyways, I hope your week is going well. We're working our way through the book of Proverbs, one verse at a time, and so we're just going to dive right in. And today we're on verse 35 of chapter 3, and so we've been working our way through this chapter of Proverbs, which has this idea in it. I always just need to set this up a little bit for those who may be just watching this video independently of the rest of the series. There's this idea in this last half of chapter 3 of God created the world with wisdom and with order, and he created the systems of the world with that. So go back to verse 19 and 20 and you'll see that there. And then there's this idea of living inside God's wisdom, his way of life, the moral, just, wise way of God's design and nature, and you'll have a better life. If you live outside of that, a broken system or rhythm of life, it'll be bad. And then the last couple of verses are about how God responds to which course we choose and how God interacts with us and what it does. So that's what we've been working through. Verse 35 comes and it says this: the wise will inherit honor, but fools display dishonor. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but just to make sure I highlight it, make sure we make the right connections here. Wisdom, and remember, morality, according to Proverbs, God's ways, wisdom and morality go together. So wisdom and morality, if a person inherits, if a person lives with wisdom, then they will inherit honor. And the idea is here, you will be an honorable person. You will be an honorable, and people will see it, right? It'll become evident. And then the contrary is if fools, so those are not wise and moral and godly, they will display dishonor. And the idea here is you are dishonorable, and ultimately people will see it, right? It'll be displayed. People will see it, as is so often the case in the Proverbs and much of Jewish poetry. There's couplings. Things are paired in order to make a point of comparing or contrasting, right? Wise, fool, right? Honor, dishonor, inherit, display. They go together. It's the idea of you will gain honor, you will display honor. You will gain dishonor, you will display dishonor. They go together as an idea, and that's what this is saying here. You will be, if you're wise, you will be honorable, and you will inherit that honor from people. And if you're a fool, you will be dishonorable, and you will display it to people, because that ultimately comes out. That's the idea of the verse. So let's go through our 4 questions every time we go through 4 questions. So let's go through 4 today. Question 1: isn't honor in the eye of the beholder? Isn't honor something that just is sort of subjective, that we give honor to whoever, whatever? And in some ways you can. If you understand honor a certain way, then yes, that makes sense. So the idea here is there's two definitions of honor, 2 ideas of honor. One is to esteem something highly. So if you decide that somebody is to be honored, or that you think highly of them, then you honor them, you esteem them highly. That's one form of honor. And the other is to esteem something as good, right? You can give honor to very ungood things, but then the other idea of honor is to esteem it and say that's good, that is honorable, it has worth, and it because it's good. And so that's the other idea of honor, and that's not in the eye of the beholder. To esteem someone highly is a choice we make. We can decide to honor someone or not honor someone, and we can honor complete scoundrels, or we can honor heroes. We can choose which ones we're going to esteem highly, and that kind of is in the eye of the beholder. I like this person, or I dislike that person, and so I can decide to honor or not honor them based on my liking of them. But to esteem something as good is a little more tricky, because there is an objective good in the universe, and God created us with something inside of us that is able to detect good, at least somewhat, to be able to detect good. I mean, truly good, objective good. Now, we're not always perfect at it because we are fallen creatures. We're not perfect, and so we have something wrong inside of us. But kind of like a metal detector can detect metal under the ground, in a similar sense, the human heart has a moralness to it that can detect goodness. It just doesn't always do it perfectly, but it does have a way. And so when we look at that, we can see a good. And it's interesting how a person who is really, really good, there tends to be in society a sense that just simply grows. Oh, that's a good man. There's a good man there, and it grows as people just detect it. And that's the honor, I think, perhaps that the Bible is referring to here. Is that there's an honor there as people will simply detect it. Now, we can pervert our sense of good. We can totally corrupt our own internal mechanism that's supposed to identify good and evil. That's for sure. That can happen. And it's a form of mental illness, really, that we become incapable of seeing real good. But there's always a part of us, though, even then, I would say, that to some degree can't get away from a recognition of goodness, real goodness, honor, real honor, or honorableness. Question 2, what does it mean to inherit honor? So the verse talks about inheriting honor. And so I think the two sides of this is the idea that you will be seen as honorable, right? And you will be given honor. That a person who's wise, people will see it. They'll notice it. They'll start to detect it. Oh, there's a good person. They'll detect that. And there's an honorable. You'll be seen as honorable. But the inherit part, perhaps, is the idea of, and then they will give you honor because you're a good person. Now, there's always going to be some that hate good people, and they will want, out of jealousy or anger or guilt or whatever, they'll want to cause harm to good people. And that's a real thing too. But in general, people will see an honorable person, will see a good person, a wise person, and they will want to give honor to that wise person because the person, there's a sense of worthy. They're worthy of it. And so they're worthy of high esteem. I esteem the goodness in them, and that makes them kind of worthy of me esteeming them highly in life. And so you inherit honor, and that's the idea. And when you're a wise person, a good person, in general, people will see it over time. It becomes noticeable, and people will esteem you higher because of it. Excuse me. Question 3: aren't people automatically worthy of honor? There is an idea out there, a very flawed one, I think, but there is this idea out there that everybody should be honored just because they exist. They're humans, so they're worthy of honor. And I would say no to that. I would say humans are definitely worthy of dignity. They're worthy of being given dignity and of a respect that goes with dignity, but not honor. Honor is something that comes about because of being good, right? Honor is something that is only to be given to honorable things, and not everything a human does is honorable. Not everything a human thinks is honorable. We need to learn to live good lives in order to be worthy of honor. And then once we do that, we are worthy of honor, absolutely. But regardless of whether we're good people, certainly all humans should be given dignity, and they should be treated with dignity because they're humans and they're made in God's image, and we have that in us. So for sure. But if we want to be seen as honorable or good, we have to do what it takes to be good. Now, all of us really want to be seen as righteous. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't want to be seen as a good person. We'd love for everybody to think of us as good persons, just that not everybody wants to do what it takes to actually be a good person. And so there's this desire to tell everybody, you have to see me as a good person, whether I am or not. And like, well, no, you're not automatically a good person just because you exist. You've got to choose to be a good person, choose to be honorable. I think that's one of the problems of our current age, is that we've decided people should be given honor whether or not they've deserved it. And so people don't feel any need to deserve it. They just get offended if they're not given honor. Question 4. What is the internal problem I talked about? I said about this idea is kind of a mental illness. What do I mean by that? So there's something psychologists call dissonance, right? Psychological dissonance or whatever, cognitive dissonance. This idea that inside of yourself, you'll have these two things at war, right? There's quite often we'll have two ideas, two things we believe in or desire, and they are kind of mutually exclusive. And so we end up with this dissonance, this disharmony within ourselves of like, I want both. How do I get both, right? And so in the area of honor, this works with the idea of I want to be seen as good. I want people to think, I want to be good. But sometimes what I want to have or do in life is in direct conflict with what will bring about that sense of good. In other words, I want to do something bad. I want to do something. I know it's not right. I shouldn't do it, but I want to be a good guy. And so there's it's a conflict in there. It's like, you're pulling both ways. And so we do all these things to try and deal with that. And so sometimes what we do is we try and rationalize, or we ritualize, or we do all sorts of things to try and convince ourselves that the bad thing I want to do or be or whatever isn't really bad, right? We want to try and convince ourselves it's not really wrong. It's actually good. And so we'll say, oh, everybody's doing this, or we all have this weakness, or it's really not that bad. Or, we all come up with all these ways to say that the unrighteous behavior is actually righteous behavior. It's okay. So I can be both. I can do the unrighteous behavior and I can be honorable and good, right? And that's one way we try and solve this conflict in us. And the other way we do it is we deny that behavior. We say, no, it's wrong behavior. No matter how much I want it, I'm not going to go down that road. I'm going to choose to move away from it. I'm going to move my mind away from it and value righteousness and being honorable instead. And you find fulfillment in being honorable instead. And you can move away from that and the wrong desire. You can learn to get away from it. It can happen. It does. People do it all the time. And so that's the other road. Now that's a hard road, because the call of the desire can be so big and so strong that it's difficult. But that's what happens. The Bible refers to this idea of the war inside of us between our fallen nature, the flesh. The Bible refers to this fleshly nature, and the spiritual, the call to the good, the spiritual nature that God is forming in those that are followers of him. And there's a war that occurs within us between these two things, pulling us. They set their desire, it says, against each other. And so what we need to do is we need to deny ourselves the fleshly side and instead pursue and set our minds on the spiritual. And then we will go that proper honorable road and we will inherit honor. But if we decide instead to deny the spiritual and embrace the fleshly, unwise, unmoral behavior, then we will instead display our dishonor. And that's what that's about. So how about you? Do you want to be worthy? Do you want to be honorable? Is that what you want? Then pursue it. It's not automatic. You don't deserve it just because you want it. Pursue it. And if you do, you will inherit it. You'll inherit honor. And if you don't, then you'll just display dishonor. You'll show the whole world that there's no honor there. And that'll just come out. Nothing you can do about it. It'll just be shown. So something to think about. Have a good day. God bless us. Help us to do this, I pray. Help us all to be people who pursue and live in wisdom. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless. I'll see you on Friday.